Welcome to the radio. What time is it where you are, and where are you listening from tonight? We're always curious, so feel free to let us know in the comments. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to Quilloren Radio for more quiet stories just like this one. Tonight's tale takes you to a dim, warm tavern in the year 1479. You are a maid here, not the kind that sweeps in silence, but the kind that slips between laughter and ale, who hears every verse of the song and every whispered piece of gossip, even the ones not meant for your ears. As always, without further ado, let's begin. The door always needs a good shoulder to coax it open, and tonight is no different. You lean into it, apron folded neatly under your arm, your other hand clutching a small, cracked mug you meant to return from home days ago. The hinge gives with a weary groan, as if you've asked too much of it again. Inside, the light is already doing that thing it does, glowing in uneven puddles across the tables, catching the edge of someone's cheekbone here, the rim of a tankard there. It's not dark, not exactly, but it's the sort of dim that lets secrets stay seated. The tavern sighs at your entrance, not the people, the building itself. You've always thought the floorboards have a sort of resigned personality, groaning and murmuring just enough underfoot to remind everyone not to get too confident. The smell hits you second. Roasted leeks, wet wool, candle wax, something slightly over-pickled. The hearth has been going since midday, and someone's left their cloak far too close to it again. It smolders, not dangerously, just enough to make a quiet statement. You nod toward the bar as you pass, and Darren, who's been here since the church bells, lifts his cup with an expression that might be a greeting or might just be his face. You've never been entirely sure. His stories, though, arrive like clockwork, each more embellished than the last. You've begun charting the evolution of his tales by how many dragons appear. The back of the room hosts the usual cluster. Men who think they sing louder than the minstrel, women who know better and laugh anyway, and one large man with a laugh like a mule that's been startled. The minstrel himself, name uncertain, hat unnecessarily feathered, is tuning his lute with all the seriousness of a bishop, though he's only just learned how not to squeak the strings. You weave through the tables with the ease of someone who's memorized the tavern's particular geography. The wobble of the second stool from the hearth, the nail that snags apron hems near the third support beam, the patch of floor that holds on to spills like a grudge. The air is thick with noise, but it's the kind that coats you rather than overwhelms. You hear someone whisper about the baker's daughter again, and someone else mutter something about an unfamiliar horse tied out front. You log both in the quiet shelf of your mind where tavern trivia resides. Behind the bar, you reach for the first mug of the evening. It's already been poured, the foam just softening at the rim. You hand it off to a man who doesn't thank you, but his nod is sincere enough. The bar smells of old ale, peppercorn, and a hint of lavender from that cleaning rag you keep forgetting to replace. You swipe it across the surface anyway, watching it leave a streak that glistens for all of 2 seconds before vanishing into the grain. Out the corner of your eye, you spot the goat again. Same goat, different rope, still tied to the post just outside the front door like it's waiting for a dinner invitation. You'd almost think it belonged to someone if it didn't come alone. A child once claimed the goat speaks fluent Flemish. You're not sure which part of that is less likely. You slide a basket of bread down the counter. The crust is firmer than ideal. It could probably be used to defend the tavern if things ever got rowdy, though you doubt they will. Even at its loudest, this tavern never really fights. It simmers. It puffs its chest. Then it remembers it has stew waiting and sits back down. A chair scrapes somewhere behind you. You turn without urgency. Just old Marta shifting in her usual spot by the hearth. She doesn't wave. She hasn't done that in years, but she stares at you with that mild expectation. The kind that suggests she already knows you'll bring her the correct tea. You do. Of course you do. You pour it from the pot that's been steeping since sunset. She takes it with a nod so faint it might have been a blink. The minstrel plucks a few tentative notes, each one testing the waters. He's learned not to start too early. The tavern has a rhythm, and to interrupt it is to risk being talked over until the next moon cycle. The trick is to wait until the gossip hits its first lull, when the regulars remember their cups are empty and their secrets still half spilled. Only then does the song become part of the room instead of an intrusion. A breeze sneaks in from the back door, cracked open by someone who never quite closes things properly. It carries with it the smell of rain not yet fallen, and maybe a bit of chimney smoke from the next house over. You tighten your apron string. The weight of the day hasn't hit your feet yet, but it will. For now, you keep moving. There's rhythm to the room, not just in the music, but in the way it breathes, swells, and hums. Each clink of mug and burst of laughter fits into the space like it's always belonged there. You pass by a man arguing with a woman who clearly isn't listening. She's busy watching someone else entirely, her eyes drifting past him like he's furniture. You refill her cup without interrupting. The man stops mid-sentence, briefly confused by your silent efficiency, then starts again, slightly louder. By the time the first real verse of the night begins something about a fox, a fiddle, and a very long winter, the tavern is fully alive, not chaotic, just full. Every bench, every booth, every bit of creaky floor has claimed a body or a rumor, or both. You've only just begun. Your feet know it. Your arms know it. But for now, the mug is light in your hand. The room is warm, and the goat still hasn't left. There's no rush, not really. You move through the room with the sort of patience that only comes from knowing the night won't end any faster if you hurry. Every table you pass offers a variation of the same thing: a half-eaten crust, a tankard sweating into the wood, and someone telling a story that seems to grow a bit more elaborate with each retelling. One man is talking about a fish he caught that was as long as the table. You were there when he pulled it out of the stream. It was slightly bigger than his boot. But you nod as you pass, as though it might have grown since. The tables themselves have their own stories. One in the corner still bears the knife marks of a carving contest that got too enthusiastic. The winner undecided, but the table permanently changed. Another has a wobble that's been solved with a folded piece of parchment, which you've noticed changes authors every few days. Someone must be using the underside of the table as a form of rotating commentary. You pass the hearth and pause. The fire tonight is mellow, coals more than flame. It hums rather than crackles. The scent of oak and something slightly sweet, perhaps a bit of spilled cider on the hearthstone, mixes with the must of old brick. A pair of boots rest too close to the edge, empty. The man who wore them now asleep with his feet tucked beneath him and a gentle snore that matches the lute's current tempo. You catch a snippet of tune as you pass. The minstrel's fingers are more confident now. He's found a rhythm the room accepts, something that doesn't demand attention but nestles neatly into the background. He sings of a miller's daughter, which seems unwise, considering the miller's daughter is seated 3 tables away and laughing at something else entirely. She hasn't noticed, or maybe she has and simply finds it flattering in a vague, non-committal way. The serving trays haven't been washed in weeks, but you choose one that's less sticky and balance it on your hip as you collect empty mugs. There's a comfort in the repetition. Tilt, lift, nod, move. Someone compliments your speed, though they say it like an observation rather than praise. "You move like you've done this before," he says. You smile politely and don't tell him that you could navigate this room in the dark and have on more than one stormy evening when the candles gave up before the patrons did. Near the back, A trio of women play a quiet game involving stones, coins, and glances. You're not sure of the rules, but the laughter suggests someone's winning. A child peeks out from beneath the table, where she's built a small fortress out of bread crusts and her mother's shawl. She waves. You wave back. Neither of you says anything. At one table, a man's telling a story about a ghost who haunts the latrines. His audience seems split between disbelief and delight. You've heard the ghost theory before. It always resurfaces after someone slips on the damp stone steps. You set down his refill with a calm, "Good luck," which earns a chuckle from the next table over. The windows have fogged slightly from the warmth inside. You wipe a circle clear with your sleeve and glance out. The street beyond is quiet. The kind of quiet that feels padded, like snow might fall, though it hasn't yet. The goat is still there, chewing something it probably shouldn't. You wonder if it has a name. You decide it probably doesn't. A dog ambles through the front door, not a regular, but clearly familiar enough with tavern etiquette to avoid the fire and stick to the edges. No one questions its presence. You give it a small bit of sausage from your pocket, a habit you've never admitted out loud. It accepts the offering with the grace of royalty and disappears under a table. In the corner, someone is drawing. Not well more shapes than likenesses, but they glance up at faces and try again. You suspect the drawings will be left behind at the end of the night, forgotten in the rush of cloaks and coins. You'll find them during cleanup, smudged with cider and charcoal, and quietly slip them into the drawer near the back that holds other strange remnants. A single glove, 2 mismatched earrings, a tiny folded note that just says, Wednesday. The smell of stew has changed slightly. Someone added rosemary, which doesn't go with the rest of it, but adds a new dimension. You make a mental note to compliment the cook later, or at least to acknowledge the effort. The bowls coming back are mostly empty, which is endorsement enough. The bench by the window groans as someone shifts. You notice the cushions are lopsided again. Someone must have borrowed one for a nap earlier and returned it in the wrong order. You fix it as you pass, smoothing the fabric that still holds the faint impression of someone's elbow. A man asks if you've heard the latest about the blacksmith's apprentice. You haven't, but you tell him you have. He leans in, delighted, ready to share it anyway. You listen with half an ear, already knowing how the story will end with someone embarrassed, someone married, or something mysteriously set on fire. Occasionally, all three. The music softens. The lute strings sigh. The tavern has reached that hour when the energy dips just slightly before the second wind. You refill mugs that aren't quite empty. You retrieve bowls that weren't quite finished. You pause near the hearth again, letting the warmth sink into your knees. The fire hasn't moved much, but the light feels different, thicker, somehow. You stand there a moment longer than necessary. Behind you, the door creaks open and then closes again, letting in a gust of cool air and a scattering of leaves. No one new enters, but the room notices. Eyes flick to the door, then back to their drinks. It's not suspicious. It's just the tavern being attentive in its own quiet way. And you are part of that attentiveness now, part of the background hum. You keep moving, not because you have to, but because that's what the room expects. And in return, it lets you move through it with a kind of soft familiarity, the way your hand knows the shape of your own cup, or how your feet find the warm patch near the hearth without looking. There's a bench just past the hearth, long enough to seat 4 but rarely holding more than 1 at a time. It leans slightly to the left, its legs unbalanced by the tavern's uneven stone floor, and one of its back slats is secured with a piece of wire that no one remembers attaching. You've known it since your first day. Everyone has a name for it. The crooked pew, the gossip plank, or simply that bench. You've always called it Marta's seat. Old Marta doesn't own it, of course. She doesn't own anything in the tavern, not even her mug, which she borrows nightly and returns by placing it exactly 3 inches from the end of the bar. But Marta occupies that space the way ivy claims a wall, slowly, without asking, and in a way that looks entirely natural once it's done. Tonight, she's already there, seated on the end that tips slightly toward the fire. Her shawl is wrapped 3 times around her shoulders, patterned in some indeterminate color that used to be blue. Her cane rests beside her, hooked over the edge of the bench like a companion. She holds her tea in both hands, not for the warmth, but because it gives her an excuse to pause before speaking, which is her favorite theatrical trick. You bring her the same tea as always, black, slightly oversteeped, with a splash of something that might be elderflower, or might be the tavern's homemade excuse for cordial. She doesn't ask for it, she expects it. You hand it to her with a nod. She nods back, her gaze sweeping the room like a magistrate preparing a verdict. "You're late," she says, "though you're not." "Am I?" you answer, setting a clean cloth down on the table beside her. She sips and makes a thoughtful noise, somewhere between a hum and a throat clear. "The apprentice was here earlier, left in a hurry, smelled like charcoal and shame." Her tone is matter of fact. You offer a soft smile, the kind that says you've heard this genre of sentence before. You tidy the edge of the bench beside her, not because anyone will sit there, but because the cushion's developed a fold that annoys you more than it should. Marta watches with mild approval, as if your handling of upholstery confirms something about your character. She speaks again, this time with the air of someone delivering confidential news to an entire town. "The widow Thorne is seeing the butcher's son now, and I don't mean seeing like church seeing, I mean seeing." She emphasizes the word with a raised brow and a meaningful sip. You nod solemnly, pretending to be shocked. "That's the 3rd one this season." "She's efficient," Marta replies, as if this is a compliment. "I respect it. There's comfort in her presence, not warmth exactly, but a sort of useful gruffness." Marta has the tavern's memory, not the facts of it, but the feel. She remembers which stools used to wobble before they were fixed, and which ones still do. She knows who always sings along, off-key, and who suddenly stopped. She's the one who noticed, months ago, that the cress in the stew had been replaced by something slightly more bitter. No one told her. She just knew. The bench creaks as she shifts. You crouch to retrieve a coin that's rolled beneath it, flipping it twice before pocketing it for safekeeping. Marta doesn't comment, but you sense she's added it to her unspoken log of tavern happenings. Behind you, the music lifts slightly. The minstrel has moved into his 2nd set, a series of folk tunes whose lyrics are a bit too honest for mixed company. No one complains. The bench catches a bit of the melody and hums along, its old joints vibrating faintly with each strum. Marta taps her cane once in time, not with the music, but with the rhythm of her own thoughts. You sit beside her, briefly, just enough to let your knees take a break. The bench leans under your weight, not unpleasantly. You're careful not to touch her shawl. It's part of her armor, even if it smells faintly of peppermint and attic. She turns slightly toward you. "Did you hear about the new constable?" You shake your head. "Scared of horses. All horses. Even the little ones." She raises her brows as if this single fact renders him unfit for office. "Had to be led down the road by a goat." You glance toward the front door, where the same goat still lingers, now chewing something that looks suspiciously like rope. "I think the goat is freelancing," you say. Marta makes a noise that might be laughter or indigestion. It's hard to tell. She doesn't smile, but her eyes wrinkle at the corners. You stand again, not because you want to, but because mugs are stacking at the bar and someone's shouting for stew in a voice that does not inspire confidence. Marta doesn't say goodbye. She rarely does. She just turns her gaze back to the room, eyes flitting from table to table, noting things you'll hear about tomorrow and pretending not to see things she'll mention in a week. You leave her there, grounded as ever on that slightly tilted bench. Later, when the room has thinned and the candles are burning low, you'll find her shawl folded neatly on the cushion and her cup placed exactly where it always goes. The bench will be empty again, humming softly in the firelight, waiting for its next story, or at least the next overheard whisper worth repeating. And you'll straighten the cushion again, knowing she'll only crease it tomorrow. You return to the back of the tavern slowly, letting your steps fall into the natural rhythm of the room. It's not a rhythm anyone would notice from the outside, not a beat, not a tune, but a deep, ambient tempo made of clinks and sighs and the shifting weight of the evening settling into itself. There is a point in every night where motion becomes measured, deliberate. You've reached that point. The mugs are still being filled, the stew still ladled, but everything feels slower now, as though the tavern has leaned back slightly in its chair and exhaled. You lean too, just behind the ale casks, in the narrow space between the wall and the shelves of mismatched pottery. You rest your shoulder against the cool wood and close your eyes, just for a breath or two. No one notices. Or if they do, they're kind enough to pretend they didn't. The weight of the day has started to gather in your knees. It always does around this hour. Not painful, exactly just enough to remind you that you've been carrying things, lifting, standing, moving. You press your palms against your thighs and breathe in through your nose. The scent that reaches you is layered. Smoked oak from the hearth, something peppery and rich from the kitchen, and the faint, earthy scent of dried rushes underfoot. There is a curtain near you, hung to block the draft from the storeroom. It sways lightly, touched by a breeze you hadn't felt until now. The air shifts around you, cooler but not cold, brushing your skin like the hem of a robe. You notice how it rustles the edge of a linen sack hanging on a hook. Everything has softened. Somewhere near the center of the room, the minstrel has begun another tune. This one quieter, slower, less a song and more a memory trying to find its melody again. No one claps. No one sings. They simply listen, or don't. But it hums underneath the room like a quiet current. It echoes off the beams and settles into the gaps between footsteps and conversation. You watch the candlelight flicker across the top of a mug. The foam inside has settled, a ring of tiny bubbles clinging to the edge. One by one, they pop. The sound is too faint to register, but somehow you feel each one. That mug belongs to a man who hasn't said a word all night. He holds it like it contains a map to somewhere he's not ready to go. You've seen him here before twice, maybe 3 times, always in that seat, always with that stillness. Some people drink to remember, some to forget. He drinks like he's waiting for permission. The stool beside you creaks, and you glance over. Empty, just settling under its own weight, as though it remembered something. You let your fingers trail along the edge of the cask beside you. The wood is smooth with years. The rim slightly damp where someone spilled their ale earlier. You make no effort to wipe it away. This part of the tavern isn't for tidying. It's for resting. Behind you, the storeroom door clicks faintly in its latch. No one enters. The sound simply reminds you that the back rooms are there, the spaces where flour is kept in sacks, where onions hang in braided strands from the rafters, and where a broken spinning wheel has been leaning against the far wall for over a year. You're not sure who put it there, or why. It's never been fixed. You suspect no one remembers who it belongs to anymore. Still, no one moves it. It's part of the place now. You shift your weight slightly. The floor beneath you is uneven, one heel finding the dip in the stone that only your feet seem to remember. The tavern's bones are old, older than anyone who drinks here. They creak and bend and hold steady, like a story told so many times that its edges have been worn smooth. You lean back against those bones. They do not ask questions. They do not judge. The lute continues. The notes stretch long and low, lingering just enough to touch the back of your thoughts. Someone hums along quietly, a sound that fades into the hush before it can become a real melody. You wonder who at Island. You don't look. It doesn't matter. A spoon clinks in a bowl. A chair scrapes half an inch and stops. A hand knocks over a mug, and a quiet apology follows, barely above a whisper. No one is angry. It's the sort of night that forgives itself as it happens. You rub your palms together, slowly, letting the friction warm your fingers. The pads of your thumbs are still slightly sticky from honey spilled earlier, the sweetness faint and persistent. You think about washing your hands, but decide to wait. There's something familiar about the tacky warmth that reminds you of summer festivals and market stalls, of plum jam and the pastry that always burned your tongue when you ate it too fast. Someone near the bar laughs, but it's not the kind of laugh that demands attention. It slips out and disappears before it can take up space. You glance over. A man and woman sharing a joke. She's covering her mouth. He's looking at her like he's surprised she's still there. You don't know their names. You don't need to. You think of Marta, still on her bench, likely unmoved, still observing, perhaps tapping her cane in time with the song, or not at all. She never leaves before the last verse. It's one of the many unwritten laws of this place. The goat is finally left, or maybe it's curled up outside, waiting. You'd check, but you don't feel like moving yet. Your muscles have started to understand that this is a pause, not an end. Not even a break, just a pause. The fire near the hearth is sunk low, not out, just low. It glows instead of burns. The color is deeper now, more ember than flame. You think you might prefer it this way. It doesn't dance. It rests. You find yourself matching it, breathing with it. The back of your neck itches where a stray hair has come loose from your braid. You don't fix it. It feels like a small rebellion, the kind no one notices but you. Above, the ceiling beams stretch across like a low canopy. One has a crack running its length, filled long ago with something you can't identify, wax, maybe, or sap. It catches the candlelight just so. You've looked at that crack every night, and every night it reminds you that things can split and still hold. You stand after a while, slowly. No rush, no purpose, just motion. The stillness hasn't left you. It simply moves with you now, like a shawl draped over your shoulders, warm and unspoken. The room is quieter than before, but not empty, still full of breath and soft sound and quiet knowing. Your apron hangs heavy at your sides. Your hands are still. You let them stay that way for one more moment before you return to your place among the mugs and the noise. But even then, the stillness lingers. Quiet, whole, undisturbed. If you're still here, listening from wherever you are, we're glad to have you. If you've found comfort in this quiet tavern and the way the night unfolds, consider subscribing to Quilloren Radio. We share these kinds of stories often calm, steady, and made for evenings like this. The room has shifted, though no one mentions it. The corners feel softer now, as if they've let go of their edges. The air holds a new kind of hush, not silence, but something more velvety. Even your steps have changed, lighter, slower, more like gliding than walking. You pass a table and realize the candle on it has not burned down, but somehow risen. The wax is taller than before. You blink, and it's normal again. The lute continues. But it's hard to tell whether the minstrel is still playing or if the tune has begun playing itself. Each note lands gently in your chest, as though the room is gently plucking at your own rhythm. The melody doesn't seem to be about anything, which is somehow a relief. You step past the old map near the doorway, the one meant to show nearby roads and townships. Tonight, it looks a little different. There's a river you don't remember, curling like ribbon near the corner. You think it wasn't there yesterday, or the day before, but it belongs now. It matches the color of the tavern's ceiling beams, that deep, aged brown that swallows candlelight whole. Someone's drawn a face on a mug. You don't know who did it, but the face is smiling. A little too wide, a little uneven, like it was drawn by someone who wasn't sure what joy looked like but gave it their best. You rotate the mug slightly. The eyes blink. Only once. You set it down without comment. Things have started doing that lately. The hearth murmurs in a language no one speaks. The sounds aren't words exactly, but they feel like instructions for resting. Sit, breathe, lean into the warmth. Don't worry about the stew. You pass Marta's bench again. She's still there, though her shawl is glowing slightly, like someone wove the sunset into the threads. She doesn't seem to notice. Or perhaps she's always looked like that and you're only now seeing it. Her tea hovers a finger above the table. She doesn't lift it. It just floats quietly near her hand, patient and oddly loyal. Someone's coat is multiplied. Where before there was one, now there are three, folded precisely, stacked neatly, not belonging to anyone you can name. One has a pocket watch with no hands. Another has a small pouch labeled Wednesday in blocky stitching. The third coat has a feather tucked into the collar, the same type of feather from the minstrel's hat, though you're fairly certain his is still in place. The walls stretch slightly, not in a way that breaks them, more like they've decided to breathe along with the room. You catch a glimpse of the rafters above and notice that one of the beams is missing. It should concern you, it doesn't. The roof hasn't sagged. Instead, a soft glow pulses in its place, steady and dull, like the tavern is thinking about something comforting. The dog is back. You didn't see it enter. It lies curled under the bench where no one sits, breathing slow and even tail flicking now and then. You hear it snore, once a long, whistling inhale that ends in a soft puff, like bellows winding down. A spoon nearby mirrors the sound exactly. The spoon has no mouth. Someone hums. Not a person, exactly more a chair. You pass it and feel the vibration in your knees. It's the same tune as before, but deeper, like the tavern is remembering its own song, the one from before anyone named it. You think you like this version better. The windows no longer show the outside. Instead, they reflect the inside, not mirror-like, but gently confused, like they're trying to recall what it means to be a window. One of them shows a version of you, still working, still moving, but with flowers braided into your hair and a crown of mismatched cutlery resting on your head. The reflection nods to you. You don't nod back. You open a door you didn't know was there. It leads to a small pantry filled with items no one has ever ordered. Powdered thunder, bottled echoes, one jar of snow that glows faintly purple. You close the door softly. The handle feels slightly warmer than before. You mark it with a cloth, though you know the cloth will vanish by morning. They always do. Marta hums something now, not a song, but a pattern. Her cane taps once. The light near her dims, then brightens, like the tavern is acknowledging her comment. The bench she sits on has started to ripple, faint waves rolling down its length. Not enough to disturb her seat, just enough to make it look like the wood is thinking of water. You decide not to ask. One of the spoons is missing. You find it in your apron. You're not surprised. The minstrel's lute now has one extra string. He doesn't play it. It hums on its own, a note too low to hear but easy to feel if you touch the bar. You press your palm flat against the surface. It vibrates, gently, not like a warning, more like a lullaby. The bread basket refills itself slowly, loaf by loaf, as if remembering that people are hungry even when they don't say so. You consider taking one, but your hands feel too light. Not empty, just not in the mood to hold anything. A shadow near the fireplace moves. Not quickly, just slightly left, then slightly right, like someone swaying to a tune only they know. It has no source, no person, no explanation. You watch it for a moment. It pauses when you notice. You turn away first. The goat is inside now, seated on a stool like it's been invited. Its hooves tap in rhythm with the music. It wears spectacles. You do not question this. The goat does not look at you, but you feel deeply that it could explain something important if only it wanted to. It doesn't. You reach for a mug and find it already clean. You reach for a rag and find it folded fresh. The air feels thick with kindness, the sort that doesn't require attention. Everything is humming not loudly, just low, like the whole tavern is wrapped in a blanket it hasn't used in years and finally remembered it liked. You lean against the wall again. You close your eyes. You breathe. The wall breathes with you. There is no beginning to this part of the night. No end either. Just softness, warmth. The steady blur of music and candlelight and the murmured nonsense of a tavern that has decided, quite gently, not to make sense anymore. There's a hush now. Not a silence, not exactly, but a soft stilling. Like when a story ends and no one claps because they're still living inside it. You're standing by the bread counter, though you don't remember walking there. A single slice of something golden sits beside you, steam rising slowly as if it has something to say but no urgency to say it. The lute has stopped, or maybe it hasn't. You realize that what you thought was music might have been something else all along the sound of spoons turning, boots shifting, someone whispering into a jug. But it's gone now, whatever it was. In its place, a gentle ticking, like time, has remembered itself and resumed work. You look toward the minstrel's corner. He's still there, but different now. His head leans to one side, resting on the wall. His fingers move, but they don't touch the strings. It's as if he's playing a memory, not the lute. The hat with the feather still sits proudly atop his head, though the feather now curls downward, damp at the tip, like it's been through something. You feel you've been through something too, though you'd be hard-pressed to name it. A chill enters the tavern, delicate as a sigh. It creeps in through the cracks in the wall and the seams in the floor. You pull your shawl tighter and realize it's not yours. It smells faintly of rosemary and ink. You wonder who left it and why it fits so perfectly around your shoulders. Marta's seat is empty, not just unoccupied, gone. The bench remains, but the dent where she always sat has smoothed itself out. Her cup of tea is there, still hovering just above the table, but now it rotates slowly, clockwise. The liquid inside is still, not even steam. You look for her cane. It leans against the wall near the door, gently rocking. The hearth crackles once, then lets out a puff of ash that forms the vague shape of a bell. It rings without sound, just a feeling, low and round in your chest. The goat blinks at it, then hops off the stool and walks out through a door you've never seen before. The door closes behind it without a sound. You think oddly that it left you something, some insight perhaps or a suggestion, but your brain won't translate it. Not tonight. The lights dim slightly. Or perhaps your eyes have grown heavy. You rub them, The tavern doesn't sharpen. It softens further. Everything seems one breath away from vanishing. A customer at the far table raises a hand to call you over. But when you look, the hand lowers. Not because you're coming, you aren't, but because he's forgotten what he wanted. His expression is calm, almost pleased, as if the forgetting was its own small relief. You walk toward the window. The reflection is gone. Now it simply shows a stretch of water where the road used to be. A boat rocks gently in the tide, moored to nothing. Inside it, a stack of plates and one flickering candle. You press your palm to the glass. It's warm. Behind you, someone begins stacking chairs. Slowly, deliberately. The sound is familiar, wood on wood, feet on stone, but it's all one note now. No variation, just repetition, like the tavern is tidying itself for a night that might last longer than usual. The floor beneath your feet shifts slightly, like a yawn. The boards creak, not with age, but with the same tone you'd hear when a cat stretches after sleep. You walk carefully now, not because the floor is unstable, but because it feels rude to interrupt it. You glance at the bar. One mug sits turned on its side, a drop of ale frozen mid-drip on the rim. It hasn't moved in minutes. The bartender, whose name you never learned, you now realize is gone too. You think he might be behind the curtain that leads to the cellar, but the curtain isn't there anymore. Just a clean wall with a single nail embedded in it. The nail looks satisfied. You hear footsteps behind you. Turning, you see no one. But the footsteps continue, slow and unbothered, like someone retracing their evening, one step at a time. You do not interrupt. Whoever it is, they've earned the space. The candle nearest to you flickers blue for a second, then returns to yellow. A small moth dances above it, wings catching light in slow motion. You wonder how long it's been here. Maybe it's always been here. Maybe it lives off forgotten names and the warmth of spilled broth. A spoon hums one last note, then goes quiet. You sit. You don't remember choosing to, but your knees bend, your body lowers, and the bench welcomes you with the kind of quiet pride that only wooden furniture can hold. You look down at your hands. They are your hands, but slightly older, not aged, just more used. Like they've stirred more stews, wiped more brows, held more grief than you recall. Outside, or what you assume is outside, it rains upward. Drops rise from the earth, lifted slowly into the dark. You watch one land gently on the window's exterior, then reverse course. The drops leave no trace. You can see stars now. Only one moves sideways, not across the sky, but through it, like it's cutting across fabric. You breathe in. The tavern smells like bread and stories. You breathe out. The tavern smells like farewells. The lute is gone, not just silent gone. The minstrel's seat is empty, though his hat remains. The feather is dry again. It stands tall, impossibly straight. You resist the urge to take it. It's not for you. You stand, or perhaps you float up. There's no difference anymore. The tables are clear, the benches aligned, the fireplace dims, one last breath of heat. Then the coals fold inward, like they've completed their purpose. You walk toward the back door. You've never used it before. It's always been for deliveries or strangers. But tonight, it's yours. It creaks open with a kindness that makes you want to cry. You step through. You do not close the door behind you. You don't need to. It knows. There is a softness to the air now, almost like flower dust left to hang in morning light. The warmth from the hearth has mellowed to a more settled glow, low and consistent. The wooden floor still creaks every so often, responding to cooling boards and shifting weight, though no one walks through. It's just you here for now. No tankards clinking, no laughter cresting, no gossip twisting through the rafters. You lean against the worn edge of the counter. The wood beneath your arm is smooth from years of elbows and idle pauses. There's a scratch there, one that looks vaguely like a fish or perhaps a particularly exhausted bird. You've never been able to decide. A small candle flickers on a side shelf, nearly done with itself. The wax is puddled wide at the base. The room smells faintly of warm bread crust, but the ovens have long since cooled. There's nothing left to clean tonight, nothing to wipe or refill or gently chide for tipping too far in their cups. You close your eyes for a moment. You think about how long you've done this work, not just today, but over the years. Your hands know the shapes of this room better than they know stillness. They reach without thought, find tankards without looking. You could sweep this place blind and still avoid the one loose stone that always catches the broom's bristles. And then your mind drifts forward. Not tomorrow, not next week, but farther. The kind of far that wears new shoes and unfamiliar voices. What will this tavern be like in 40 years? Will it still smell like roasted garlic and damp wool coats? Will songs still drift in from the corner bench, where a fiddler with half-tuned strings and a full belly tries to earn another round? You wonder if someone else will stand where you do now, arm propped on the same counter edge. Maybe they'll hum as they work or whistle if they're bold. Maybe they'll have new rags, newer mugs, or even some clever invention that washes everything at once, though you can't picture what that might look like. Some sort of magical tub with hands? You think about how people will dress. Surely the sleeves will be just as bothersome, the aprons just as prone to slipping, but perhaps the shoes will squeak less. That seems a reasonable request for the future. Will the same patrons come? Of course not. But they're like, perhaps someone with a laugh like thunder, someone who leans too far when telling secrets, someone who always orders soup and never finishes it, someone who flirts kindly and someone who flirts poorly. These, you suspect, are constants. The faces change, but the personalities just put on different coats. And the gossip. Oh, the gossip. Will people still trade whispers about who was seen slipping through the alley after midnight? Or whose chicken mysteriously laid 2 yolks in a single egg? Will someone still declare, with great confidence, that the brewer down the lane adds a dash of plum to his dark ale, despite all evidence to the contrary? You smile faintly. Even if the walls shift and the floors are replaced, surely there will always be someone hunched over a cup, muttering something scandalous, hoping someone overhears just enough to ask for more. The window shutters rattle gently. A night breeze creeps in through a gap at the top. You imagine future versions of this tavern with sealed glass, quiet warmth, and no drafts. It sounds nice, but oddly sterile. You wonder if anyone will miss the way the wind sometimes carries in a scent of distant rain and the low, dusty hush of the village closing down for sleep. You glance up at the rafters. There's a notch where someone carved their initials E.T. or maybe F.T., depending on the angle. You've never known who did it. You wonder if it will still be there decades from now, or if someone will sand it away in pursuit of a cleaner look, not realizing they've just erased someone's small claim on the world. Maybe that's what the future will be, full of quiet erasures. Little touches smoothed away, a song forgotten, a favorite chair discarded because it leaned too far to the left. You wonder if there's a way to preserve the lean of a chair, to keep the memory of how it held someone who always dozed off before finishing their drink. You walk slowly toward the back room, just for the comfort of movement. The floor shifts as always beneath your step. One board still slightly raised where a barrel used to sit. No one fixed it because it always reminded people where the stout used to be, as if the floor itself missed the old barrel's weight. In the back room, the shelves are lined with jars and dried herbs. Some are labeled with tidy twine tags. Others rely on memory. You run a hand along the edge of one shelf. You imagine someone else, 40 years from now, doing the same thing. Maybe they'll find your scribbled note behind the jar of dried thyme, the one that says, "Don't touch smells of goat." Maybe they'll ignore it and regret it. Or maybe they'll leave it untouched, adding a new note beneath yours. That would be nice. Layers of warnings, built over time. You think about how much a tavern holds that no ledger records. The way the sunlight hits the dust motes in the late afternoon. The way the old man in the corner taps twice before he speaks. The precise moment when the room shifts from noisy to hushed. Usually one verse into the fourth song. There's no reason the future should remember these things, but you hope it does. And if it doesn't, if this place is ever gone, razed or rebuilt or paved over for something called progress, you hope someone, somewhere, remembers the feel of a place like this. The way the air smells just before supper. The way a room hums with stories that no one dares to write down. You walk back to the front and settle once more by the hearth. The coals are nearly gone. Just enough warmth lingers to hold the shape of your thoughts. You wonder if warmth will feel the same in the future, or if even that will be improved, optimized, made less interesting. The door creaks faintly. No one enters. The creak is just part of the night, part of the sound this place makes when it thinks no one is listening. You are listening. And somewhere, in the far stretch of time, you hope someone else will listen too, if only for a moment. The evening is hollowing out, not in a sorrowful way, but like a loaf of bread, fresh from the hearth, giving up its steam. There's a release in the quiet, a settling, like embers drawing inward. The edges of the tavern, once thick with voices and the clatter of wooden mugs, have blurred into a gentle hush. You know this part of the night. The chaos is behind you now. The barked orders, the flirtations, the failed ballads, the spilled drinks, the shrieks of laughter that came from two women trying to dance in boots made for the field. Not the floorboards. The gossip had flowed faster than the ale for a while, mostly harmless things, shared with the understanding that nothing said here would survive till morning without being twisted into something new. But now even the gossip has grown weary. You wipe your hands on your apron. It smells faintly of onion and nutmeg and something faintly burned. There's a curved bench near the hearth, one that never sits quite level. You let yourself drop onto it slowly, letting out a breath you hadn't realized you'd been holding for the past 8 hours. The fire has become a soft tangle of red coals. No one is singing now. The minstrel left some time ago, with a bag of bread crusts and 2 extra coins in his palm. He'd nodded at you, not with thanks, but with understanding. You'd both survived another evening in the company of the tired and the thirsty. The descent begins here. You feel it in your shoulders first. The weight of movement, lifted. The air is still warm, but no longer demands anything from you. For the first time since the sun dipped low, you are no longer needed. Not urgently, not patiently. You simply are. There's still work to do, of course. They're always island. A few plates remain on the corner table, one with a rind of cheese, one with bones so clean they could be sold to an apothecary. But none of it calls to you. Not now. The tavern allows you this pause, a silent permission granted by the absence of voices. You let your eyes drift across the room. There's a single candle still lit on the far shelf, forgotten. Its wax has puddled like old soup. You think about getting up to snuff it out, but your body decides otherwise. Let it burn a little longer, like the stories do in this place, lingering past their usefulness, flickering for no one. The descent is not sleep. It is the slope toward it. Your mind is not done. It begins to wander in the way it always does during this part of the night, not forward, not backward, but sideways. You think of the man who left without paying, the one with the too wide smile and the coin that never came. You think of the girl who slipped a folded note into another's apron pocket. You don't know what it said, but the way her hand trembled, it must have been something. You think of the barrel by the storeroom, the one that creaks only when it's half full, and the child who tried to steal a peach, only to be caught by the cat, not by you. This tavern has its own memory. You are not the keeper of it. You are merely part of it. Outside, the village is asleep, or pretending to be. No more horses clop past the windows. No more laughter spills from the courtyard. Somewhere in the distance, a barn owl makes its low sound, not quite a hoot, more like a sigh trying to find its voice. You stretch your fingers out on your lap. They are sore in the joints. Not painfully, just familiarly. The kind of soreness that says, "You've done this many times before, and you'll do it again." You lean back against the wall. It's cool, even now. The stone never keeps warmth long. You rest your head there, eyes half closed. You think about how the walls have heard more than you ever will. And yet, you've heard enough. Not the scandalous parts, not the sharp-edged secrets, but the undercurrent, the tone in a voice when someone says, "I'll be back tomorrow," but doesn't mean it. The softness in the song the minstrel sang, the one about the woman with two names. The way the butcher's wife looked at the baker's daughter, as if something had just begun. You are not the heart of the tavern. You are its pulse, constant, quiet, sometimes missed, but never gone. The coals hiss gently. A log shifts and sends up a thin curl of smoke that doesn't quite make it to the chimney. You don't move. You just breathe it in that smoky, ashen scent that clings to everything here. This place is never silent, not entirely, but this is as close as it gets. The candle finally gutters out. Its light dies with a soft wheeze, and the room leans darker. You feel the shift in your bones. Not a chill, just a signal. The night has ended. What remains is only the drift into whatever comes next. There's a part of you that doesn't want to leave this moment. The descent is gentle, and you don't want to wake up from it just yet. But you know the rhythm by now. This is the dip before the stillness. You glance one last time at the room. A chair still leans drunkenly against the far wall. A spoon glints on the floor where someone dropped it, and no one cared enough to pick it up. A scarf hangs forgotten on a peg near the door, waiting to be claimed or repurposed. And then there's you, part of the quiet now. You shift slightly, tucking your legs beneath you, feeling the day dissolve in the corners of your mind. Not quite asleep, not quite awake. The descent is slow, but steady, and it is yours. There is a sound in your ears that is not quite silence. It is the absence of clatter, of songs, of names called across tables, and in its place is something else. Not emptiness, just quiet company. The kind that settles into a space after everyone leaves, yet something remains behind. Not people, not spirits, but something quieter than both. You are still sitting on the uneven bench, back leaned against cool stone, knees pulled up just enough to make yourself smaller. The fire is no longer coals, not really just heat that remembers. It glows faintly, like something shy. You are still here. And as always, you wonder, what of tonight will last? Will it be the girl with the ribbon in her braid, whispering too close to the miller's son? Or the traveling merchant, hands stained with wine, offering stories in exchange for bread he never paid for? Or perhaps the quiet, unnoticed details, the way two old men argued about the name of a dog no one else remembered. The stories spoken here do not go far. They don't travel across cities or climb into court records. But they remain in the grain of the wood, in the soot between bricks, in the grooves of the spoons someone left behind without thinking. You've served them all these wandering pieces of life, and in return, they've given you a strange sort of knowing, not the kind you can write down or explain, but a knowing that lives in your pace, in the way your hands remember the weight of a mug before you lift it. You don't need names to recall people. You remember them by their habits. The way one man never drinks until he's asked 3 questions. The woman who taps the table twice before speaking. The boy who always checks the ceiling beams before sitting, as if expecting them to fall. The tavern remembers too. Every seat is worn in a way that matches a story. Every mark on the wall is the echo of something. An argument, a stumble, a celebration that got out of hand. You don't repaint them. You don't scrub them clean. You let them stay, because they belong here. Just like you. You never meant to stay this long. You'd told yourself once, years ago, months, that this was temporary, that you'd earn enough coin and then leave for something better. A city, maybe. Or a quieter village, one with clean streets and no strangers. But here you are. And though the thought of leaving still visits you now and then, it doesn't stay as long. Not like it used to. You've grown roots, not deep ones, but tangled and familiar. Enough to keep you upright. You glance down at your apron. There's a new stain you hadn't noticed. Dark, round, and probably plum. Someone had ordered fruit with their stew again. You make a mental note to clean it, then forget the note a moment later. There's peace in that, in letting little things go. You think about what tomorrow will bring, not in dread, just in repetition. There will be stew. There will be ale. There will be someone angry about something they barely understand. There will be a song played slightly off tune. There will be laughter. And that laughter will come from someone who didn't expect to laugh that night. And you will bring the mugs and sweep the floor and listen when no one realizes you're listening. You will smile only when it's earned. You will rest only when the chairs have been turned over and the candle stubs float in their own wax. You close your eyes briefly, just to feel the room without looking at it. It's still here. You can hear the walls breathe. You can feel the table near your knee. You know, without looking, which floorboard would creak if you shifted left. This place isn't yours, but it holds you. And when someone someday asks about this tavern, they will speak of its smells, its songs, its crooked signs, and its chipped mugs. They might not remember your name, but they will remember the maid who nodded instead of speaking, the one who brought warmth in a bowl when words failed, the one who saw without judging. That is enough. A place does not need to be perfect to be home. It just needs to hold your shape, and this one does. Even in its quietest moments, especially in its quietest moments, it knows who you are. You press your hand to the table beside you. The grain is smooth from use. Someone once carved their name into it, then tried to scratch it out. You never asked why. You never needed to. Outside, the wind brushes against the shutters. It's not a storm, just a reminder that the world continues. But here, for now, it's still. And in this stillness, you find your closing thought. You are not waiting for anything else tonight. Everything you needed to witness, you did. Everything you were meant to carry, you have. And whatever the morning brings, it will come to someone who is not just a tavern maid, but a keeper of quiet stories, spilled wine, and moments that mattered only because someone was there to see them. Let it end here, Then you breathe out, slow and silent, and prepare for the final drift. There is no more work to do, not for now. The candles have long since burned low, their wax puddled into quiet shapes on the windowsill. The shutters are closed, held by crooked latches that have never lined up properly but still manage their job. In the corner, the mop leans against the wall, damp and heavy, forgotten for the night. Even the hearth has gone still. No flames, no glow. Only a faint breath of warmth that clings to the stone like a ghost unwilling to leave. You lie down on the bench beneath the window, the one that creaks when you shift too quickly but holds your shape if you stay still. Your apron is still tied at your back, and one boot hangs half loose from your foot, but you've already given in to the quiet. There's no need to rise, no need to fix or finish anything. Everything that needed doing has been done imperfectly, maybe, but done all the same. The laughter, the clatter, the music that missed one note during the final verse, all of it is behind you now. The whispered arguments and slurred confessions, the spilled stew and second-hand secrets, the brief kindness from the butcher's boy who never says please, it's all part of the hush that follows. It doesn't echo, it settles. And you settle with it. You hear your own breath more than anything else. It's not heavy, just present. The room holds it gently, as if it's listening. The wood beneath you is cool, but not cold. The air smells faintly of ash and dried thyme. Somewhere behind the walls, a rat decides it's too late for exploring and returns to its hidden corner, uninterested in anything more. You think about the stories that drifted across your tables tonight, some told too loudly, some left only half finished. You think about the regulars and the ones passing through. The widow who always orders broth, the pair who never speak but always arrive together, the man who leaves without saying goodbye. They all bring pieces of themselves and leave different ones behind. You don't collect them, but you notice. There's a kind of comfort in that. Not ownership, but familiarity. You don't remember when they first started calling you the tavern girl. Not who said it or why, but you remember how it sounded. Like a role. Like you'd become part of the room, not just someone inside it. The walls know you now. The tables creak a little differently under your hand. Even the fire, when it was burning, seemed to listen when you muttered about the weather. It's strange, in a quiet way, to be known by a space rather than by a name. But it suits you. Your body sinks slightly with each breath, not in weight, but in stillness. The world doesn't ask you to move anymore, not tonight. You could reach for the wool blanket draped nearby, but even that feels like too much. The air is soft enough as it island. You close your eyes, or maybe they were already closed. It's hard to tell now. Sounds grow thinner. Time does too. The mop in the corner could have been placed there this evening or 100 years ago. The creak in the floorboard just beyond your bench might be a memory or just the wood resettling. Either way, it doesn't matter. The bench curves to your back, and your hands rest easily against your stomach, thumbs touching. A rhythm forms not from thought, but from being. Nothing leads it. Nothing follows. It's simply island. Your thoughts drift to the rosemary you chopped this morning, to the cracked mug that only you seem to remember, to the way the song earlier caught in everyone's throat at the same time without anyone agreeing to it. Little pieces, unstrung pearls of the day, fall softly into place and roll away from notice. Even dreams feel distant, not absent, just slow, like they're waiting their turn, letting you find the bottom of the quiet first. You don't know if the shutters will rattle later when the wind picks up. You don't know if the candles will drip one last thread of wax. You don't know if anyone will knock too early at the door, and you don't need to. What remains is breath and weight, And stillness. Not heavy, just settled. The kind of stillness that holds no questions, no answers, just the warmth of being done, not finished forever. Just done for now. And in that quiet, you drift.